COVID-19 related travel restrictions and border closures have put a spotlight on the critical role that seasonal and temporary migrant workers play in the agri-food systems by ensuring continuity of global food supply. The Food and Agricultural Organization estimates that more than a fourth of global farm work is done by migrant workers. In Canada, for example, approximately 50% of workers in the horticulture, fruit, and vegetable production sectors are foreign. In Australia, an estimated 50% of the labor force in vegetable farms are seasonal and temporary migrant workers, mainly from the Pacific Island countries. And in my own country, Italy, about 370,000 foreign workers account for about 27% of the legally employed workforce in the agricultural sector. So as a result of COVID-19 outbreak and related restrictive mobility measures, many countries, especially with developed economies, now face significant labor shortages. This is true across the North-South divide, where we witness internal mobility restrictions, for example in India, external border closures in Europe and in North America, or high infection and mortality rates, such as in Brazil, the major supplies of soybeans to China. Now, the extent of this shortfall in production is yet to be assessed, but it is expected to have a substantial impact on agricultural value chains with severe consequences on food availability and price volatility worldwide. If we look at Europe, France has just announced that it will need 200,000 additional farmer workers this season. In Germany, the current shortfall is estimated to be 280,000 seasonal workers for the entire season. UK and Spain are short of about 80,000 agricultural workers, and that goes up to 250,000 for Italy. So overall, in Europe alone, it is estimated that there are maybe a shortfall of about 1 million seasonal agricultural workers. So recognizing the economic and food security risks in keeping borders closed to agricultural workers, government have begun to institute a variety of policies and measures to address this issue. But it's not an easy task trying to harmonize competing public policy priorities on health, food, economy, while at the same time managing labor mobility. So against this background, and back to your question on whether and how green lanes can be created for seasonal migrant workers in food production, we've seen so far three main policy responses from governments in countries of destination. Number one, extension of visas, work and resident permits for seasonal workers already present in the country, such as in Estonia or in Belgium. In some cases, these measures go as far as to regularize the irregular status of migrants through temporary moratorium. This is the case for Italy, for example, just passed last week. And then number two, attempts to engage formally inactive population groups, such as additional source of labor in agriculture, including unemployed nationals, recipients of social benefits, and other categories of migrants already present in the country. This was, for example, the case of France and Italy. And then number three, facilitate limited entry of foreign seasonal workers under very strict health protection conditions, in case the first two policy measures prove to be insufficient to fill gaps. Some examples include Germany. The German government agreed to allow 80,000 seasonal workers to enter the country from Poland and Romania by busing groups from selected airports after medical checks and quarantine. And after arrival in Germany, foreign workers would live in what was described as virtual quarantine with simultaneous work. That means basically that seasonal workers would operate in small teams, be required to use communal kitchens separately, and reside in half-filled living quarters with no external visitors allowed. In UK, farmers has also been chartering planes to bring in workers from Romania and Bulgaria to pick fruit and vegetables, given that flights were suspended in early April and journeys by land were impossible because of closed frontiers across Europe. In Canada, all temporary foreign workers entering for an essential purpose, which includes agricultural workers, are now exempt from travel restrictions and allowed entry until the end of October 2020. What is worth noting in the Canadian example is that Canadian employers are provided with a government subsidy to ensure that they supply adequate housing and pay wages during the self-isolation period. And another interesting initiative just launched in Canada is the so-called agri-food immigration pilot, which provides a pathway to permanent residence for up to 3,000 temporary migrant workers annually in certain agri-food industries. Now, these last examples seem to point to good practices in creating what you were referring to as green lanes. However, there is a caveat, because safely reopening recruitment and employment of seasonal workers should not come at the expenses of migrants. Many COVID-19 related health, safety, and mobility provisions will result in more costly recruitment and employment. So it is essential that ethical recruitment and decent work practices are maintained, and that additional costs, including but not limited to health insurance, be absorbed by either the government or the employer, respecting the so-called employer pays principles that is advocated by various multi-stakeholder initiatives such as IRIS, the International Recruitment Integrity System. And as to the last point of your question, how is IOM, the UN Migration Agency, dealing with this challenge? Now, for decades, IOM has assisted member states in the development and implementation of several bilateral seasonal worker schemes and continue to provide expert advice and technical cooperation, including now under COVID-19. Our Labor Mobility and Human Development Division at headquarters has been very active in this field, is currently working on an issue paper on this topic, and have recently contributed to the IOM-supported IRIS initiatives to the publication of new guidance for employers and recruiters on protection of migrant workers during COVID-19. And these documents document and highlight recommendations for employers and recruiters on their responsibility in putting in place measures both at work and living quarters to ensure safety and health for their workers in their operation and supply chains. So I was very pleased to hear from other speakers about safety and security coming first in their working environment. A Chinese edition of this handbook was just released and is available on our website for download. Here is a copy. And this is work that aligns very well with the global United Nations response to COVID-19, which placed protection of vulnerable groups, including migrants, at its center. Now, let me conclude on a positive note. The spread of COVID-19 is projected to be not just a temporary crisis, but a profound disruption that will change human mobility patterns, including seasonal labor migration for years to come. And IOM wish that the recovery from the pandemic represent an opportunity to extract lessons learned from the past and to build better systems for the future. And for that, the IOM stands ready to work with all its member states and